Siri Genik is the founder and principal of Bridge. With decades of experience advising major clients like BHP, Rio Tinto, and Suncor on risk management, ESG, and sustainability. She specializes in developing tailored, cost-effective strategies that foster stakeholder collaboration and build strong relationships with Indigenous communities, government agencies, and industry partners worldwide. This is not an easy task, Siri. Siri's expertise in facilitating complex conversations and creating practical solutions has supported projects across Canada, Latin America, Africa, and Asia, including recent work on hydro dam challenges in Panama. Her leadership helps clients achieve sustainable results with positive social and environmental impacts. I do want to warn you all that your phones might go crazy as I talk to Siri and ask Siri lots of questions. Okay, so Siri, you joined us. We did a Mining Over Canada initiative. This was years ago in the beginning of the pandemic. And we had a podcast, so everyone can go back and look at it if they have an interest. And it was the ABCs of ESG. And we decided to revisit this same conversation because we've done it once in between with Melissa Robertson, because the ABCs of ESG keep changing. So tell us, what is ESG today?
I'm not sure I want to answer that question. It's been so exciting, the first half. It's like, is there ESG? Is there no ESG? What is ESG? It's probably the most misused acronym with sustainability, with CSR, with HSEC, and every single acronym around that you can think of. What's changed is an evolving way of doing business. I work mostly in the natural resource industry. We've heard people mention that, mining, or people think that mining is terrible. And one thing is very true, the people in the mining industry are the worst communicators. We do some amazing things, a lot of innovation in mining in Canada. So whoever said that what we do in mining is Canada does really well is very, very true. We don't brag about it a lot. Maybe it's because we're Canadian, but we do. We have some amazing technologies and developments that are world leading. What's changed is that it's gone from from a topic that is very broad to a topic that is becoming more thematic. What it is really is truly common sense, a de-risker. It provides clarity and conformity. So a lot of people tell me, or I have clients who will tell me, well, I've got a report, so I don't really need your help. And I said, well, that's fair, but you don't need my help. What's in your report? Well, I didn't know, talk to the sustainability person over there. And I'm like, okay, well, we've got a problem. So for me, ESG is just about a responsible way of doing business. Sometimes it's been taken to extremes. Other times it's been misunderstood. But at the end of the day, we do want to make a return on our investment, and I'm the first one who wants to do that. I sit on boards, on publicly listed boards, on private boards, mostly in the mining industry. I sit on the board of the PDAC as well. And the first thing we care about is how we're doing this and the returns. So if you don't engage early with your stakeholders, that includes governments, community, your own employees, the odds are your permits won't be issued. If your permits aren't issued, your project won't move forward.
That's a really good point. You can't retroactively create relationships with stakeholders.
It's hard.
It's hard, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
What ESG for me is today, if I'm working with a client, including oil and gas, and my dad worked for Exxon for 60 years, so I know something about it, is that you have to enter into the forum really early on. And it's not that it costs money. I mean, small caps at the outset don't have they're cash strapped, and they're often working in jurisdictions, including Canada, that are very remote, very difficult. So it's about understanding where you're going to pitch your tent. Where are you going to work? Do you have an understanding of what's going on around you? It may seem barren. It may seem forlorn. Only maybe somebody says to me, there's only worms there. Well, but you may be in a watershed. And if you don't know where you're at, it's not that watersheds are not important, it's just understand what the risks are and manage them. It doesn't take a lot of money, it takes time and a bit of a thought process, so.
Right, absolutely. Let's break down the building blocks of ESG. Let's break down what those three are and what they mean again today.
So environment has evolved. It's not all about pollution. It's about how how any industry impacts nature. It's as simple as that. So you're hearing a lot right now about decarbonization. It's not just CO2, it's greenhouse gas emissions. So from driving here in a taxi from the hotel to this spot, to taking an airplane from Toronto or to Peru or to wherever, I have a carbon footprint. We all do. So are there ways that things can be done better? So pulling oil out of the ground is great. Diesel, it does create carbon emissions. They can be managed. We work with ICE combustion engines in our cars. They can be adapted. There's ways of doing things different and better. I'm not a big proponent of plus 1.5 or net zero because, again, it doesn't mean anything. It's about making differences and hearing some of the innovative companies here today who are starting to think of ideas to make changes. We talk about reforestation. We talk about carbon credits, understanding how that even is used, for example, in accounting. So if you're in one country, you can use the carbon credits developed perhaps here in Canada, that is doable from Peru to Canada. So we do need to work globally, but but there are global solutions that are developed here in the Okanagan, in BC, in Ontario. So we're talking about in ESG again, we're talking about co-creation, co-development, cooperation, collaboration. All these minds in this room brought together, thanks to the CSE, is exactly that that's what sustainability is. That's what ESG is bringing and drawing on everybody's strengths and knowledge for a better world. And yes, our smartphones are fantastic. The dial phones weren't so hot. If you don't mine it, you grow it, that's it. There's no alternative. So we do need globally to do things better. But it's also a great way to manage risk and to keep clarity in the communication.
Absolutely. Okay, so we talked about the E. Tell us about the S.
So it's relationships. It's relationships with your board, it's relationships with your management, it's relationships with your employees, with your suppliers. Sorry for my language, but miner's mouth, shitty relationships deliver shitty results. If you live in an environment where you get along, where you're aligned, you don't always have to agree, but respect comes into play, the odds are you're going to build a better business. So that's truly, so whether it's with the governments, whether it's with Ford, with Carney, with Rickford, whomever, whichever, it's about building those bridges to get to where you want to go, but you need a target, you need a focus, and you need to align. So that's the S part. Relationships.
And the G.
Often overlooked. Governance, meaning how are you structured again? You can have great projects, you can have great assets, you can have great organizations, frameworks. If you have a bad management team, if you have a poor board, if the relationships between your board and your management team are less than efficient, it's not going to work. You can have all the policies in the world. What's your performance like? How are you delivering? So that's really what the G is. And it's doing things ethically and transparently, responsibly.
And how have you seen ESG, all three of those, evolve over the past 10 years? I mean, we had our first conversation about this, I think it was 2020. And it was very much a hot topic, but it was a very new topic for most of us. It was CSR before then.
Social responsibility.
Before then, and then it kind of evolved into ESG. So how have you seen it evolve since then?
So I think the way ESG is evolving is it's becoming more thematic. So when it started, it was huge, it was broad, it was poorly understood. And people thought it was all things to all people for everything. I think slowly we're seeing organizations and company are trying to understand, for the most part, which element of the statement applies to them. So it may not all be, it may not be environment, there may not be challenges there, it may be more social, it may be more governance, but it's really thematic. So you're seeing more around decarbonization, carbon footprint. I do remind you that carbon footprint is not just CO2. There's a lot of other gases that, unfortunately, methane being one of them. So it's understanding what you're doing, what your business does, and the material elements to your business. So for me, sustainability or ESG without materiality assessments doesn't make any sense. They have to be, you have to work with your budget, your schedule, and those elements that are absolutely specific to you.
Okay, let's talk about that. So how are we seeing it being reported, and what infrastructure is being created around companies reporting and assessing their ESG impact?
Okay, so the first thing I want to say is that ESG and reporting don't have to go together.
Okay.
Having a report is not the end-all of end-alls. First of all, we've seen major companies, including Rio or BHP, to mention those, 400-page sustainability reports. They still make mistakes. So a sustainability report in itself is never a guarantee of, so to the greenwashing that I think was mentioned a little bit earlier, if the information in there, bad data in, bad data out, if the metrics, you don't understand why they're there. Sustainability reports only make sense to those people to whom you want to disclose. So depending on the exchange that you're listed on, depending on whether or not companies are members of certain associations, like ICMM being one, by law, there is no law in the world, just so we are clear, that requires you absolutely to disclose. Different stock exchanges, particularly in Europe, have required a certain amount of information, and if you want to import goods into the European community without certain metrics, then you will be taxed. So that's in place. Canada does not yet have, no country yet has compulsory reporting. However, I repeat, if you're a member of certain associations, that will be required. So you're seeing a lot of that, mostly by the very big firms, mid-tiers as well. Small companies can report something as simple as 5 or 10 pages. You do not need all the metrics. You can simply say, we have challenges with water and with surrounding communities, and you can address simply those. They're material, you may have community.
I would appreciate that as an investor if I saw that, I feel.
I beg your pardon?
I would appreciate that
Yes.
as an investor if I saw that being addressed by the corporate governance of the company.
You would appreciate seeing a report.
Seeing them address it.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
but at the outset, the items that you address should be clearly set out. Sometimes reports cover a whole bunch of information that may not even be particularly relevant or topical or have an impact on the return. It could be a good jurisdiction. I mean, many people say Canada is a fantastic jurisdiction, and a few people here were talking about the Ring of Fire. I work with them right now, Wailu actually, so they're actually Australian investors in Northern Ontario. The challenge isn't necessarily the asset. The challenge is the difficulty of the geopolitics between the federal people and building a road to get the asset to get the mineral out of the province and developing it. There's no point in developing something if you can't get it to market or you can't get it to water. So the big challenge of Northern Ontario, the big challenge in Alaska, for example, for Ambler, a big copper, are roads or infrastructure. So that's the other big piece. We tend to think of mining in particular as that activity when all the infrastructure around it has a huge impact. So again, if you're building building a sustainability report, saying that you're in a safe jurisdiction is great. Stating that you're close to a road is even more important. And if you're not close to a road and there are infrastructure challenges, it could be satellite. I've worked with Baffinland iron mines where there was no internet. And started 20 years ago, there wasn't even satellite. So Starlink didn't exist, and as much as I have personal opinions on Mr. Musk, Starlink is pretty much on everybody's mind site in the world, and it is incredible. I've been to Guyana. And so all of that, and I know I can go on forever, but it's really understanding those elements that are material to the if you can't get that damn asset out of the ground and onto a market, it's not good. So you have to understand some of the politics as well as roads, rail, internet. It's a Simandu in Eastern Africa.
Yeah.
So Guinea. Those issues should be part of your sustainability.
Understanding the context of the information that you're being provided.
Socioeconomic.
Okay, so after a glass of wine, I'm going to ask you about Elon Musk later, so we'll talk about that later. Okay, I just want to end off asking you about, let's just talk about in general your thoughts on greenwashing and reporting. This is, I think, a really important part for investors because how do you know where to look or what is greenwashing or how to identify it. And I think you did bring up context is very valuable. But talk to us about greenwashing and reporting.
So first of all, the lawyer in me will tell you that Bill C-59, somebody said they didn't like it. It is an amendment to the Competition Act, which created greenwashing. So it's been introduced, at least in Canada, by our federal legislation. And the reason being actually wasn't for mining, it was for food. Representation on packages that this is organic or this plastic bottle, this water bottle is totally recyclable or from recycled. So we'll call it poor marketing representations that were misleading. And then just recently, this year, so as of June 2025, individuals can actually complain about misrepresentation as to the sustainability of a product. But that's going to hit mining if it hasn't already, and I'm sure NGOs will be all over it on saying, well, my company's going to reach net zero by 2050, or we're going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, even scope 1 and 2, by 40% by 2030. I think somebody mentioned it earlier, if you cannot back up that statement, for goodness sake, do not write it down. Somebody somewhere is going to test the system. It'll go to Supreme Court. So what you want is to make statements that are accurate, that are transparent. If you're not managing or not meeting expectations, say it. People prefer truth to misleading. And if I'm an investor and I want to invest in any mineral, I want to know that my money is not contributing to hurting, damaging the people, human beings, or lives that sort of, want me to make money out of nothing. So it's about smoke and mirrors. So what to do against it? I wish I was a magician. I don't have a recipe, but be very, very careful about vague statements, statements that cannot be backed up. And again, for natural resource industry, when they have yearly meetings or they have quarterly meetings and they have calls, ask the questions. You say at page 2 or on this slide that you're going to reach net zero by 2050. Can you tell us a little more on how you're going to do that? Try it. I've done it, by the way. So, and we'll get back to, we'll get the sustainability person. So if you're the CEO or the CFO, that is unacceptable. You are accountable for understanding how. You don't need to know the detail. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a scientist, but I've helped clients put plans together and then go back, So it's really about truth, transparency.
I love that. Well, we are out of time, so that is a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Siri.
Thank you.
We've done, I think, 2 or 3 podcasts with Siri over the years, and there will be another one coming out this summer. I encourage you all to go and check it out when you have time because you have just so much knowledge in the space. So thank you very much for joining us as part of this. Thank you.